I promised you guys a second waiver wire video. Unfortunately, I don't have time to do the whole shebang, the whole production, the whole nice scripted, pretty, beautiful version of the waiver wire video that you typically get. So I'm going to give you more of like an impromptu, more of a live type of viewing of the waiver wire video, but not live because this is a video. But I'm going to give you additional waiver wire ads because I was not joking, guys. When I made the list, there were a legitimate 10 guys I could have also included here. So let's talk it out because these are also very critical, especially if you play in some deeper leagues. Greg Dortch is on the table for as long as Marvin Harrison Jr. is out. In the first video, we talked about Jacoby Brissett, obviously as a top QB1 streaming option, stepping up significantly, especially with all the quarterbacks that we have going down with injuries. We talked about Michael Wilson and his incredible day. I did not talk about Greg Dortch because unfortunately, once Marvin Harrison Jr. does return, that does nix him out of the equation. In that situation, that would make him the fourth option. We never really want to start the fourth option in any scenario, no matter how much volume the quarterback is pushing there. So, hesitate on that end. But as long as Marvin Harrison Jr. is out, Greg Dortch is on the table. 6 receptions, 6 targets, 66 yards, a touchdown. No-brainer there. And a matchup against Jacksonville, which despite the very ugly performance from the LA Chargers last week, Jacksonville is a very pass-friendly matchup. If you are looking for a tight end streaming option, look at AJ Barnard. Now, he's had probably one of the most excellent, quiet, underrated fantasy seasons of a tight end here. He has been a touchdown magnet on the season. And finally, we did see this awesome volume game from him. 10 receptions, 11 targets, 70 yards. No touchdown here. He's been living off of the touchdowns. And that was the only thing that made him kind of a little bit of a hesitation in terms of starting him on a regular basis there because he was so touchdown dependent. Outside of one matchup against Tampa Bay, the volume just wasn't very consistent. It was like 3, maybe 4 targets, typically like 2 or 3 targets, and you hope that he gets the touchdown there. But seeing this high volume play was very intriguing. Now, could have been a little matchup based because, again, the LA Rams are a very difficult defense, so maybe targeting the tight end was just a significant advantage there, but it's definitely something to keep your eye on here, especially in a matchup against Tennessee. Now to talk about a handcuff that really popped off here, Ollie Gordon. I wanted to include him so bad in that initial list because this game was critical. Now, again, make no mistake, we're not going to see this level of production on a week-to-week basis here. Good matchup. They leaned aggressively on the run here, like aggressively on the run. Achane had 21 carries. Ollie Gordon had 9 carries, 45 yards, and a touchdown here. Again, this is not something that we're looking and saying, oh my gosh, we have the ability to flex him on a weekly basis. No, it's not that. What we're looking at here is this was critical because we had Jalen Wright return, and it was getting a little shaky in terms of, wait a second, are we entirely sure that the direct, 100% handcuff of Devon Achane is Ollie Gordon? But he clearly solidified his claim and got back on track here to where Jalen Wright only had 1 carry, and I now feel really confident, again, that if Devon Achane goes down, it's Ollie Gordon to the moon there, so excellent. And this is the point where we want to start stashing those high upside handcuffs, right? So we don't have to fight on waivers to get them. The league winning upside types, and Gordon is that guy. Now, another handcuff here. This one, I do feel at this point we can look at on a week-to-week basis as a low-end flex option because the touchdowns have been so consistent. And it was really good to see him get a touchdown on the ground. Less carries, only had 3 carries, right? But still got the touchdown opportunity, a little bit of usage in the pass game there. But it was good to see him still get that opportunity with Bijan having himself a day there. So again, Tyler Allgeier, must roster. If he's on waivers, he offers standalone value and perhaps the most elite of elite handcuffs that are out there. Now on to a couple of guys who did not get included on the list purely because they are on a bye this week. So we prioritize the guys that we can actually use, not the ones that are on the bye and probably will be available afterwards. But if you're in a deeper league, 100% jump on this here. People accept the fact here at this point, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is not the lead back. It ain't happening. I mean, you can maybe hold on to some hope and Jaden Daniels comes back, but I just, it's not happening. We've had way too many weeks in a row where this man has gotten 5 fantasy points or less. Like, it's been 2 months now. Chris Rodriguez is the lead back. We finally saw him have some production without getting the touchdowns. Now, the touchdowns have been coming pretty consistently here, but this was good to see him at least have a fine, usable day, like 9 fantasy point day without getting the touchdown and by having success on the ground here. So Chris Rodriguez, if you're going to roster a Washington back, it's Chris Rodriguez. It's not Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Just go ahead and drop him. Another guy on a bye this week. This one was painful. This one was painful, guys. We were team RJ Harvey. I know in my heart of hearts, and I know you know too, that he is a lead back. He can be a lead back, but for some reason, and he did get the most carries there, but for some reason, Sean Payton did Sean Payton things. J.K. Dobbin goes down. We're all thinking, oh my gosh, R.J. Harvey ascending to greatness here. And we had Jaleel McLaughlin operate heavily on the ground. McLaughlin had 6 carries. R.J. Harvey had 11 carries there. But McLaughlin got the touchdown on the ground. He had the more productive fantasy day. Highly disappointing. The receptions through the air for RJ Harvey, not really significant. Not significant for Jaleel McLaughlin. He is going to be very touchdown dependent here. Somebody who's going to be used primarily on the ground. But unfortunately, it looks like Sean Payton wants to keep the same potentially alignment that he had previously with J.K. Dobbins and RJ Harvey in terms of a split backfield. Now, it was good that RJ Harvey got the bulk of the carries. That's awesome there. But from a fantasy perspective, if we're going to continue to see this involvement of Jaleel McLaughlin, it does mean that we should potentially roster him here. Tyler Beatty was not a factor. That was interesting. His involvement went completely away there. So yeah, what a week here. They're on a bye, so this is not a high priority ad here. But in deeper leagues, something to keep your eye on because, again, J.K. Dobbins is done for the season. So if we're going to have this split-ish backfield here, Jaleel McLaughlin is somebody that you do need to look at in terms of rostering. Now on to Tennessee. We had a lot go down in Tennessee, unfortunately. We had Calvin Ridley, who was out for the season. We had Chimere Dike go out with a concussion here. And we had a terrible version, of course, of the Tennessee offense here. Actually, you know what? Cam Ward was mildly competent in this one, so I won't say the worst version that we've seen. So a little encouraging there. But that does mean that we do need to look at this receiving core and try to identify somebody. The most productive player was Van Jefferson. I don't want to roster Van Jefferson under any circumstances. Never have, never will. Elic, Ayomanor, just give it a shot. Again, we're not feeling confident, but we do have Calvin Ridley out for the season. And again, concussion for Chimere Dike, so Ayomanor can potentially be on the table here. Matchup this week against Seattle, not ideal, but it does mean that Tennessee will be chasing points. So again, we saw a little bit of progress there from Cam Ward, so he'll be pushing some volume here. He's been pushing volume lately, so some opportunities potentially ahead there for Ayomanor. But really also with Tennessee, I again just want to point out that the back that you do want to roster in Tennessee is Tyjae Spears. Again, it's difficult because on a week-to-week basis, both of these guys, Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears, they can both do all things and everything. They're literally like essentially the same back here. But again, we saw receiving volume tilt towards Tyjae Spears. 5 receptions on 5 targets, 31 yards. In a Tennessee offense that is going to continue to chase points and play from behind, you want the one that has the higher upside in terms of receiving, not necessarily the one that's going to get the most carries on the ground because they are not going to be effective on the ground. Unfortunately there, Tyjae Spears, again, continues to show a solid floor. The floor is essentially 8 fantasy points, and that is nothing to scoff at. Again, some of you are out there starting Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who is giving you 5 points max. Okay, so you could do a lot worse than looking at Tyjae Spears there as a potential stash. And at the very least, you can also have the hope that, not the hope actually, but the potential of Tyjae Spears being ascended into a consistent RB2 if Tony Pollard were to go down with an injury. So he is a handcuff. He's a handcuff that does offer standalone value and receiving work on a weekly basis. Now, this again is a deeper ad here. I'm not doing, don't do this in a 10-man league. If a 12-team league, even with a shallower bench spots, don't do this, but you need to look at in deeper leagues adding Cedric Tillman for sure. Still very under-rostered here for a guy who is essentially, on the same level as Jerry Jeudy there, obviously much higher rostered. It's tough to trust either one of the wide receivers here for the Cleveland Browns, and it's not their fault, unfortunately. They're both very talented, and they both succeeded with Jameis Winston last year, but this is just not the right situation for either one of them. But I will say, you can potentially look at it, regardless of who the quarterback is, right? Because the schedule moving forward here is extremely pass-friendly. They have a very pass-friendly schedule. Their defense, again, keeps them competitive in games in general there. So if you need to potentially stash someone that could give you 8 to 12 fantasy points there, Cedric Tillman is one that you can look at. Now, this week we saw a version of Bryce Young that we have not seen in a long time. Have we seen this version of Bryce Young? I don't know if we can safely say we have seen this version of Bryce Young, but this the Alabama version of Bryce Young came through here and he looked fantastic. Now, matchup, Atlanta's defense was a little suspect. They've been tilting towards the suspect area, so that does make a difference there. But Bryce Young had a fantastic day. T-Mac went off. Xavier Legette had an awesome day. And Jalen Coker finally stepped up there. So we had production across the board from these Carolina receivers. Both Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker are guys in deeper leagues that you can look to add. I don't trust them on a week-to-week basis here, but it's tough to deny the fact that the remaining schedule leans heavier towards the pass here for the Panthers in matchups where they either have a pass-friendly matchup or one where offenses will be ripping their defense apart, so they will have to throw the ball there. So seeing Bryce Young given this level of volume when they've been holding him back significantly in terms of allowing significant pass volume for him, they let him loose. He succeeded. So perhaps them actually seeing him with high volume and succeed and do extremely well, it'll let them loosen the reins a little bit, allow him to throw the ball and benefit the entire receiving corps. Xavier Legette is dealing with an injury there, so that is why I have both of them on the list here. Legette obviously has he's proven to have the higher upside over Jalen Coker here, but if he is dealing with an injury, that would push Coker up significantly there as the wide receiver too. And again, the potential pass volume here, we do have to take into account the fact that it could be real moving forward. Just, be cautious. But again, deeper league ad here. Now, Mack Hollins isn't any league ad. As long as Kayshon Boutte is out, the volume has been very consistent for him. And even when Kayshon Boutte was in, he was consistently involved. It's just that he did not have a high level of targets. But that could also be attributed to the fact that was earlier in the season. Drake May was targeting the tight ends heavily. He has shifted away from that significantly now, and he is really focusing in on the receiving core. So it's possible that Mack Hollins could have still some fantasy significance once Kayshon Boutte returns, because he wasn't a high target guy. He was more touchdown dependent. And Mack Hollins is not thriving off of touchdowns. He is the one that is thriving off of volume here. So he's had, in the past 4 games, double-digit fantasy points in PPR 3 times here. The production is there. So if you need a potential option here, especially with the remaining schedule here. Now, that's the kicker there. The remaining schedule there for the Patriots, extremely pass-friendly. Perhaps one of the most pass-friendly, especially over the next couple of weeks. If Kayshon Boutte is out, we have Cincinnati and the New York Giants. You cannot ask for better matchups. I would absolutely assume that Mack Hollins would have excellent fantasy days. ESPN notification, live. Excellent fantasy days if we have Kayshon Boutte out in these next 2 matchups. And finally, your deep league desperation heave here. John Metchie. It's okay. Look at him. Hey, look, we liked John Metchie as a prospect. He never really had the right opportunity here. We don't have Garrett Wilson. Somebody has to catch passes in this receiving core. And while we had high hopes for A.D. Mitchell, unfortunately, he looked objectively bad. The drops were egregious. Yes, you had Justin Fields at quarterback, but a lot of that was on you, A.D. Mitchell, unfortunately. And it kind of showed exactly why Indianapolis was so comfortable moving on and why he never achieved that starter role there, unfortunately. So looking at this Jets receiving core, I know you don't want to, but we do have the quarterback switch to Tyrod Taylor. So that does mean, is Tyrod the best quarterback in the world? No. Is he still, at the end of the day, someone who leans a little bit towards the run, right? Yes. But he will throw more. That is a fact. And he can at least get you towards 200 yards. We know Tyrod can do that for us here. Somebody has to catch the ball. Again, we do have Mason Taylor as well. That is let me mention Mason Taylor from a streaming perspective of tight end. We should get a little bump there with Tyrod Taylor. But at the end of the day, if you were looking for a deep receiving option in a deep league, John Metchie is a possibility here. Don't turn your nose up to it. Don't knock it till you tried it. And that wraps things up. I told you it was going to be more of an impromptu. We literally had a notification. I'm not going to edit it out. It is what it is. It's an impromptu. Get the information out as quickly as possible to you. Additional waiver wire list. I appreciate you watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And make sure that you are turning on notifications so you get an alerts when the videos are going out. You can follow me across all social media platforms at It's Tara Time. So make sure that you're tuned in. We're continuing to bring you amazing content all season long and in the off season as well. I'm not leaving you hanging. A lot of fantasy channels do that. I love the off season. I love free agency. I love rookie prospects and scouting and the Senior Bowl and the Combine, the NFL draft. So no, I'm locked in. Don't worry. I got you covered here. So make sure that you're subscribed.